Voters is committed to filming every race, but not every form, and putting everything we have filmed into YouTube with the link from Smart Voter. So we are filming tonight, and so there we have a good start. I would like to thank you for being with us. I'm Louise Rothman-Reamer with the League of Women Voters of Oakland. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan organization that encourages an informed and active participation in government. Before we start, as a matter of courtesy, please turn off all your electronic devices and be aware that campaign literature and forms of campaigning such as buttons and T-shirts are not permitted inside the forum room in order to maintain neutrality. And I'd like to remind everyone present that the candidates have all agreed to participate under these conditions, and these are also posted outside of the room. We have two candidates tonight for the board position for District 6, and they are Shanti Gonzalez and Renato Almanzor. I'm sorry, excuse me, Almanzor. And so I'd like to give each of you a moment to tell us what it is that you would like to do as a board member. And Shanti, let's start with you.
Great, thanks. I'm Shanti Gonzalez, running for school board in District 6. Want to start by just telling you all that I grew up in Castro Valley, and I'm the daughter of a UFW organizer who became a legal aid lawyer. So he taught me about vulnerability and to think about how to fix it. So I was raised, unions are one strategy that we have. He was a union organizer. Legal strategies, he was a legal aid attorney. And then I believe from both of my parents, I learned about the importance of education as a way that we can reduce people's vulnerability. I think schools are the best tool that we have to reduce people's vulnerability, and nobody should have to stay in an exploitative employment situation or with an abusive partner because they don't have choices. And that's why I'm on the Library Commission. I believe information is an important way to reduce people's vulnerability. That's why I serve on the board of La Raza Centro Legal. I want everyone to have access to legal strategies, and it's also why I'm running for school board. We got to make sure that everyone has choices, and education is one of the best tools we have to do that. So some are saying that the district isn't doing so great in terms of giving people choices, and they're right. But I don't believe the answer is to close schools that are the anchors of communities. I believe the answer is to invest in our schools, and that's what I want to do. So when I'm on the board, what you're going to see is investment in teachers. So what that looks like to me is not just paying our teachers fairly, but making sure they're getting good training. So making sure they're getting enough observations and feedback to improve their practice, making sure that they have some say in the kind of professional development they get, and making sure they have time to prepare their lessons and learn from each other.
Thank you. Renato.
Well, good evening. My name is Renato Almanzor, and I'm running for school board in District 6. And I'm doing so because we can do better for our kids. As a parent, like all parents, I was my son's first teacher in a school that we called home. So I know intimately what it takes to raise a child so that he has the environment that nurtures and also challenges him to be the best that he can be. I chaired each of his school site councils at the elementary, middle school, and high school, and he graduated from Skyline in 2013. As an educator, I've also done a lot working, in addition to receiving the Faculty of the Year award twice at one of the universities I taught. I know what it means to design a curriculum that really helps our students to do the best they can do. I also, and some of my students were actually principals and district administrators. I taught at Cal State East Bay's doctoral program in educational leadership for social justice. And as a community leader, I work with a lot of nonprofit executive directors. And I've learned that education isn't just about education. It's also about economics, it's about environment, it's about health, and I know how to pull all those things together with the partnerships that I've made. I'm committed to the ABCs of a thriving community, and that's amazing schools, building a beloved community together, and civic and community engagement. Public education is a promise to deliver a high educational experience for our kids, and I'm running for school board to deliver on that promise.
Okay, so let's start off by exploring what you think are the central issues facing the Oakland school system today. And Renata, would you start out with that? That's what are the central issues facing Oakland school system today?
Can you remind me how much time I have?
You have 1 minute, 90 seconds.
90 seconds, awesome, thank you. So some of the challenges that we face are low graduation rates. We have 66% overall, 52.4% African American males are part of that, 59% Latino, 49% English learners, so graduation rates are just horrible. Declining enrollment in our district schools. At one point, when I started working with schools as a consultant, in 2002 we had 53,000 students, and today we have around 35,000. And for me, there are also more incidences of violence than any child should experience in a lifetime, let alone in one academic year on their campus. And so, again, what I'm committed to doing is creating amazing schools that will ensure that every third grader is reading at grade level, that every sixth grader recognizes statistical variability, and every graduate is prepared for college, career, and community. And building this beloved community means working with not just the students, but the adults who are closest to the students, the teachers, and making sure that they're supported to do the best they can be, inviting families and their parents to be seen as partners in our educational experiences, working with community-based organizations to work closely with them. And then civic engagement. It's not enough that we have a caring community. We must also have a community that is powerful, and that requires that we're engaged with leaders at all levels to hold each other mutually accountable.
Shanti?
Thanks. Shanti Gonzalez, running for school board in District 6. So a few things. One is that we have to shift our focus to spending in classrooms. The district is, Oakland Unified is they have the most central administration and the least spending in classrooms of any district in Alameda County. And so that's a really big problem because we know that we need more caring adults in the schools in Oakland. So I want to see us to have more resources in classrooms, which to me looks like having more tutors, having more counselors, having more social workers, having more literacy specialists, to spread out the teacher workload, but also to make sure that kids are getting the services that they need. So that's one issue, right? We've got to shift spending to classrooms. Another issue I already mentioned, we have to invest in our teachers. We lose 60% of our teachers in the first 5 years in Oakland. And we know, and they tend to be leaving the flatland schools in East and West Oakland where we really need some stability for these kids. So we got to fix that. So I believe, as I mentioned, we got to invest in teacher pay, but we also have to invest in teacher training. And the third thing is organizing parents. To me, that looks like working with families a lot sooner. A lot of Oakland kids start school and they're already behind because families didn't know about services they're eligible for. They didn't know about the importance of early reading. They didn't know that what happens at home is as important as what happens in the classroom. So we got to be working with families much earlier, and we also got to make sure that parents know their rights to be involved in the school if that's what they want. And organized parents are the only thing that's ever really worked to improve schools in Oakland. So we need parents to be organized so they can put pressure for school improvement.
Thank you. Let's look at the school board for a moment. And what do you see that the school board can do to hire and retain high-quality teachers and encourage diversity among the staff? And Shanti, do you want to start this
Sure.
time?
So we've got a really exciting program in Oakland called Teach Tomorrow in Oakland, and it's small. And what I'd like to see is us scale up that program so that becomes one of the main ways that we recruit for the teacher workforce in Oakland. Teach Tomorrow in Oakland recruits teachers who are from Oakland, so they already have a commitment to this community. They know the issues that the kids are dealing with. The retention rate is better for those teachers, and the teachers look like Oakland. And that's really important because kids need mentors who look like them. So I think that's one thing I'd like to see the district really invest in is scaling up that program so that we can improve the teacher workforce, diversity in the teacher workforce, but also retention of our teachers. And so, can you repeat your question? I lost my train of thought.
I was asking, what can the school board do to hire and retain high-quality teachers and encourage diversity?
Okay. I think I mentioned we got to invest in our teachers. So we're not, Oakland has the lowest paid teachers in the county. It makes it really hard to both recruit and to retain a good teaching workforce. And then the second thing is, so one example of how I know we're not investing in our teachers, several teachers have pointed out to me that they don't get business cards. So what that tells me is that we don't expect that our teachers are going to be out there in the community representing Oakland. We don't expect that they're going to be networking with other teachers and building relationships and trying to improve their practice. So I think there's a lot of very simple things we can do to make teachers feel more valued. And then investing in training and professional development, I feel, is one of the most important things that we can do.
Thank you. Renato?
Yes, thank you. I am aware of the program to work on developing a pipeline for our citizens of Oakland to become teachers in Oakland. And one of the things that I think we need to do to truly hire and retain good teachers is actually to change the narrative of our teachers. And as a school board member, that's really one of our key responsibilities is what's the story that we're telling? And not just because school board members tend to talk a lot. But how is it that we're actually telling the story about how important our teachers are and being able to complement that with actually providing them the compensation that they need? We already know that Oakland teachers are paid the lowest, I think, in this whole area. So how is it that we are actually prioritizing not just the pay, but other kinds of compensation, the ways that we care for them? And the thing that I'm realizing as I'm interacting with teachers is that actually teachers hang out with other teachers and not just teachers within Oakland. So how are we making sure that the stories that our Oakland teachers tell to other teachers in the area is the right story or the positive story? So we need to kind of be able to provide the data that says this is what kind of development they're getting. This is what the experiences are working with kids, working with families, working with principals and other district administrators. The other thing around increasing diversity, I think a lot of it is being able to make sure we're driving it with the data. We need to go and recruit at the highest, at the most prestigious schools to kind of bring those students, graduates into our programs here in Oakland. And we need to recognize that a lot of those prestigious schools do have students who are already from our area.
Okay. Not only are we talking about hiring and retaining teachers, but we want to ask some questions about the issues that teachers and students face. And so this one is sort of a philosophical question, and that is, what is educational equality, and how would you address that in Oakland Public Schools, and what is the most critical issue that you see in which inequality is happening? So what is educational equality? How would you address this problem? And then what is the most critical issue of inequality that you see facing Oakland Public Schools? And Renato, let's start with you.
Great. Well, I appreciate this question deeply because I feel like my life's mission is truly about working towards a love-based social justice agenda for community development. And when I think about educational equality, there's another word that jumps out, but equality is often referring to equal input. Like it assumes that if we if everyone gets the same treatment, equal treatment, that it's fair treatment because it assumes that people are starting at the same place. And I don't think equal treatment is necessarily fair treatment, and that's where I would introduce this idea of equity, which is more about equity of output, right? The idea that we want to be able to look at data to be able to see how is it that our output, students' performance, based on authentic data, is actually meeting the high expectations we should have. So for me, when I talk about equal treatment, not being fair treatment, one of the issues is we need to be able to be okay with identifying those areas that are in greater need and give greater resources to those areas that are in greater need. So one of the things that I know Oakland has done is being able to start to identify schools around being Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 schools. Tier 1 schools are those that are doing pretty well, where we want to maintain the quality of the services and support that we are to those schools. Tier 2 are those schools that are doing sort of well, but could need a little bit of help in one or two or a few areas. Tier 3 of those schools, within the 85 or 86 schools that we have in Oakland, that's about 33 schools in Oakland, and we need to be okay with saying we need greater resources in those schools, and that's teacher, family, and student resources.
Okay, Shanti?
So I think there's a few things. The first is that we don't even have equality of inputs. So it's not only the case that kids are not starting at the same place, but one of the big differences between Flatlands and Hill schools in Oakland is that the difference, between what kids have in terms of extracurricular activities at school, even just the sheer number of classes. Do they have any electives? Can they get into an academy that's going to help them prepare for a career? There's a lot of schools in Oakland where, frankly, kids can't even get the A through G classes that they need to be eligible to go to college. So, we have some really basic problems with just getting the equality of inputs, and if we could get there, that would be a big step. But we're not there. And each kid is different, and so it matters that several schools don't even have sports, they don't have shop, they don't have, arts or music on a consistent basis. What engages each kid and makes them want to come to school is really different. So in my case, I was, a chubby, bookish kid, and if my school hadn't had a library, which a lot of schools in Oakland no longer have, and if we hadn't had a computer lab, there would have been times when I wouldn't want to go to school. I wouldn't have felt safe. So I think, we got to look at the fact that many of our schools don't even have basics, and a lot of schools have those things because the parents fundraise for them. And we're not talking about fundraising for field trips. We're talking about fundraising for positions, library positions, coach positions, those kinds of things that used to be something everyone in California could expect, and now we can't. So we got to just look at making sure that we're providing basics to all the kids.
Thank you. This question is, parents are mostly concerned with their children's academic performance and school safety. As a board member, what policies would you approve to address these concerns? Shanti?
I think we don't really have a good strategy around truancy right now. And I don't know what the answer is. The district used to have truancy centers, and they were kind of controversial. Police like it because they see kids getting into trouble, and they don't have any place. They used to have a place to take them. Now they don't. But there was controversy over, was the services that they were getting at the truancy centers effective services. So, but I can tell you that, a lot of the safety is not necessarily related to kids who go to the school, but kids who should be in school, and they're not. And we don't really have a good strategy for that. So I think that's a big issue. I'd like to see us using school security officers or, perhaps the district's police force to do some work around attendance, reaching out to families. And it doesn't have to be the police or school security officers, but somebody needs to own that at each school, and we don't have that in place yet. And so I think that's really important, to be reaching out to families, finding out, do they know their kid's not attending school, and is there something we could do to help the kid attend school? And we also got to make sure that we have people in these positions who are trained to work with children. I'm really concerned, talking to several city police officers, that there's a reputation that the district police have for being very poorly trained and very ill-equipped to work with children. And so we got to fix that. We got to have people who are trained to work with children, and we really got to focus on having a real strategy around truancy and attendance.
Okay, thank you. Renato?
Yeah, one of the things I realized, again, being a parent, I worried a lot, and maybe that's just me, but I think a lot of parents worry a lot, and a lot of it was hoping that my son was okay each time he went to school. So that's why I showed up quite a bit, not only getting to know the teachers, but getting to know the principals, and then subsequently serving on all the school site councils. But I also knew that I couldn't do it by myself. That as a parent, I also partnered with a lot of organizations, and I do that even now. So when I think about a school board member focusing on things like academic performance and school safety, they are linked. And so I know now, even in my work, I facilitated the last two strategic board retreats of a group called Bay Area Parent Leadership Action Network, and Malia Franklin's executive director there, who's endorsed me, and I'm doing it for identification purposes. But one of the things I've learned from that is, like, how do we make sure that parents have good information about what good education looks like? Sometimes parents will show up to school and think a noisy classroom is a bad classroom. And I know for me, my classrooms were often loud because they were fully and authentically engaged in the curriculum. So being able to understand what does good learning and good teaching look like. I also think that as a school board member, we need to understand what are the issues facing our kids. And I know there's a Measure Z that's being talked about in other places, but I work with organizations like Youth Alive and Youth Uprising, as well as Black Organizing Project, who's helped educate me closely, and I provide a leadership development program for these executive directors who help me understand what is the data around working with police and youth and everybody else.
Okay. So what do you, as a school board member, think that you can do to help raise the incentives and motivational level for the students to study, to stay in school, and to choose a skilled trade or a college career. So what would you do to raise those incentives and motivations for kids? And Shanti, let's start with you on this one.
I think I already spoke to this a little bit when I said that we have to make sure, because every kid's different and we don't know what's going to engage them, we have to have a rich curriculum. We have to make sure there's extracurricular activities. We have to make sure that there's sports and drama and debate, and because each kid's different. So I think that's one important thing that we could do better at. There's also a lot of programs that are very small, but I think are very promising. So one of them is called Gateway to College. This is a program for at-risk youth, youth who are chronically absent from school, and it tries to get them to go back to school, and they earn college credit while they finish high school. So I think we have to think about programs like that and how do we expand them, because when kids see light at the end of the tunnel, I think it's really different. You know, finishing, getting with some college credit while you finish high school helps you to see that if you keep going, there's going to be a next step. And then there's a lot of programs like Upward Bound that already exist, and we have to figure out how do we make sure that families know about these opportunities. And so one of the things that I already mentioned is I believe we've got to be working with families much earlier, and that I believe we have to organize parents. And so to me, that's part of this, is making sure that families know about all of these opportunities that are available to them. And so I think that could look like several things. It could look like outreach workers. It could look like making sure every high school has counseling staff so that there's somebody whose job it is to tell children about these opportunities. So yeah, I think there's some things, if we make investments in these staff, like counselors, that's a real opportunity area there.
Okay, Renato?
Yeah, so again, Renato, running for school board in District 6, and I think one of the things is we need to continue having the conversations with teachers and recognizing that we are recruiting and supporting those teachers that are content experts in whatever level that they teach. But in addition to that, I think we need to understand the curriculum needs to move towards what I would characterize as another set of 3 R's, and that's rigor, relevance, and relationships. How are we making sure that the curriculum is rigorous enough to not just help our students get by, but that they're actually rigorous enough to challenge them to become better, and that it's relevant to their lives? Sometimes we're teaching them that doesn't have any connotation to what it is that's going on for them on a daily basis, understanding their context. But it also has to be based in relationships. How are we making sure we know that kids don't care so much about how much teachers know. They want to know how much teachers care. So how are we making sure that we're developing those kinds of relationships where folks can care about each other? And when I think about motivation in particular, I draw from, I'm a nerd, I read a lot of books, but there's a book that I love that's called Drive. And what I understand about motivation in working with the students that I work with and supervising a number of staff that I work with is that motivation goes beyond just incentives. It's being able to work towards autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So how are we making sure that kids have choices in the kind of learning that they want to have? We want to recognize all of their genius. How do we want to help them be best at what they believe they're best at? I think vocation is where your greatest passions meet the world's greatest needs. So how do we help kids do that? And that gets to the third point of motivation, which is purpose. How do we make sure that they know why they are alive and what they're doing in life?
Okay. We also have a lot of special needs kids in Oakland, and so I'm wondering if you could comment on the transportation problem with the new contractor to transport special ed children, and how could we have avoided these problems? And Shanti, would you start with you?
So I think this problem is related to a much deeper problem that the district has around pretty historically poor services for special needs kids. So I'm going to the CAC meeting on the 8th because I want to hear from some more parents about what happened and what the district is going to be doing about the transportation issue. I have to be honest and tell you that the special needs programs in Oakland are not something that I know enough about yet. And that's why I'm going to be going and meeting with parents to learn more about the issues that they've had. But I've talked to several parents who've told me that the district is very slow to respond to their needs, sometimes taking a year to get back to them, that they're not happy with the placements that their kids have had. And that's a really big issue because these are some of our most vulnerable kids. And unfortunately, there are also kids who don't tend to be served well by charter schools either. So not only have the district schools failed them, but they're often either not accepted by charter schools or sometimes even asked to leave charter schools. And so nobody is holding these children and making sure that they're getting what they need. So I know that this is something the district is working on, and I'm really excited to go on the 8th and learn more about what the district is planning to do.
Thank you. Renato?
Yes, I'm afraid I don't know, I'm not up on the information about the transportation and the contract issues there. And yet I agree that being able to understand each of our kids as individuals as well as understand their groups, that they are members of many different groups, and special needs kids are a grouping that we need to pay particular attention to. And again, I mentioned earlier that we have 51% of our special ed kids are graduating, and that's just horrible. And one of the things that I think we need to do is make sure as well that our parents understand their rights. What I don't think there's enough of is good education about what are the rights of parents and families to be able to demand these things. And I think the other part of it is we need to make sure that there's a better understanding of what are the federal requirements, but sometimes there are federal requirements around special ed that doesn't come with resources for districts. So districts are often scrambling, I think, to be able to meet the needs of all our kids without the resources that they need in particular. And I think as we go forward, we need to be harder on the structure and softer on the people, right? Sometimes there are some constraints that we're working within, and we just get upset at each of the different people who are in the different departments. And one of the things we need to understand is what are the constraints systemically that don't allow us to sometimes make the best decisions we can make.
Okay. Could we go back to talking a little more about parents, and how would you suggest that we get parents and the community more involved in educational policy and educational programs? And Renato, can we start with you?
Sure. So what I've learned in the years working on, I wasn't so much into the PTSAs as much as I was with the school site councils. That was something, even though I think I did my part in supporting the fundraisers where they existed. But I think one of the things that's important is, again, there are already a lot of parent groups that are there, open community organizations and Bay Area Plan, and then there are some other organizing groups at each of the different sites that I think we can tap and we should partner with. So we need to have those conversations. And that also includes just general community work, right? So what I've learned and found is that parents actually listen to other parents. But what I found needs to happen even more deeply is that parents need to actually do some studying together. We need to be able to sit and understand what, again, are Common Core standards. What is this thing called Local Control Accountability Plan? Just because we have the local control funding formula doesn't mean that we have enough. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to live with someone who actually studies that stuff and does education finance reform across the state. So I think I've become a pseudo, maybe not an expert, but someone who's pretty knowledgeable about that and making sure that I understand what parents and community members need to understand to be able to, again, engage each other to hold our leaders accountable, but also hold the community accountable for their part in financing school reform, as well as just educating all of our kids.
Okay.
I think one of the failures of the district is they expect a lot of parents, and they should, right? Because these are their children. But they'll summon parents to schools, or not even their kid's school, but to some, downtown place, and expect parents to show up, or they'll send an email or a robocall. I believe we need to just show up at their houses, send someone, a parent organizer, outreach worker, whatever, because what that tells parents is this is important. And we got to do that. Parents have to know that this is really important. And like I said, they have to know that what happens at home is as important as what happens at school. So we have to not only show up, we also have to make sure that we are doing things at a time that's convenient for families, not just for the district. I can't tell you how many school site council meetings I've had to miss because I have a job. And the school site council meetings will be scheduled at 10:30 in the morning. Well, guess what? A lot of parents have to work. They can't go to school site council meetings at 10:30 in the morning. So I think we have to be more centered around what's convenient for families. Are we providing things in services and languages that they understand? Are we making sure that there's childcare or dinner or whatever it is that we need to do to make it easier for families to participate? So I think that's really important. It's just showing up. Also making sure that parents know they have a right. I mean, I've talked to multiple parents who've told me that they tried to volunteer at the school. They tried to be involved in the school, or somebody at the school told them, yeah, we're good. We don't need your help. Well, we know we need more adults in these schools, caring adults. And so parents have to know their rights, and we have to do things at a time that works for them, and we have to tell them it's important by showing up.
Okay. Measure N is going to be on the ballot. It's the Oakland School parcel tax. And so I'm wondering if you could talk about that and whether you support it, and maybe something about where you think that money should go. And Renato, let's start with you.
I do support the parcel tax. And some of the reason why actually is I think, I don't know if this sounds right, but I think we all have to feel like we are investing in our kids. And so whether we have kids in our schools or not, I think we need to understand that working on our schools and school system actually works on our communities. So we need to be able to understand all of that. So I do support it. And I support it in particular because I think the goals of the parcel tax are really that to what I mentioned earlier about not having the horrible graduation rates that we have. We do need to graduate every kid so that they are prepared for college, career, and community. And I'm saying and community, not or and career and college, and not just or college. And I think that's what this parcel tax is going towards, is supporting the linked learning program, where we're not only just making sure that kids at the middle school understand some of their passions and where they can start to pursue that in the high school, we're actually working on the support of the transitions. Oftentimes, we're losing kids from 5th to 6th grade and then 8th to 9th grade, right? There's just a dip in our students. And sometimes they're going to other schools or other districts, but sometimes they're just not showing up. And I think, again, it gets back to my idea of what a good curriculum is, and that's rigorous, relevant, and relationship-oriented. And this parcel tax actually supports the system so that we are doing all of that, where we're making sure that whatever experience is for the kids, that it's rigorous enough to challenge them to be the best they can be, that it's relevant to their lives, and it's based on relationships.
Okay, thank you. Shanti?
I'm really excited about the research around linked learning. I am supporting the parcel tax, and I even wrote about it on my blog. Everybody in this room probably knows that getting a job is only partly about what you know, and the rest of it is about who you know and the relationships that you have. So I think that this is really important for giving kids, an opportunity to apply what they've learned, because there's something really powerful the research shows about not just learning a curriculum, but having a chance to put that curriculum into practice. But also build some relationships that are going to help kids once they, make that transition, hopefully make a transition from school to career, or even to college, right? Even having some relationships was going to help them get internships, which is really critical to being able to get a job. So, but that's not the only thing I'm excited about. This partial tax is also intended to make sure that the kids who need it get intensive support around their basic skills, because a lot of our kids in Oakland are not at grade level. And so that's one thing I think is really important, that they're going to get the tutoring and support that they need in math, science, whatever it is that they need, writing. And the other thing, just lost my train of thought. Making sure that these academies are equally distributed throughout Oakland. Right now we have a lot of, where you would expect, Tech and Skyline, have a lot of these different academies. Fremont, McClymonds, Castlemont, not so much. And so the idea is partly to make sure that these opportunities are all throughout Oakland, which I think is a very important goal.
Okay. What authority and decision-making is currently at central office that you think should be moved to the school site? Shanti, let's start with you.
One of, I think, our big problems in Oakland is that our school site administrators are pretty overtaxed. And so they are tasked not just with being instructional leaders, which I would prefer to see their primary role be giving teachers observation, feedback, mentoring, especially for new teachers. and not so much on the physical plant of the school. So I don't want to see principals focused on the plumbing and the vendors and the supplies. And so one thing I would like to see is principals have more control over the services that are at Central around that stuff. Because what I've heard from talking to principals and teachers is that a lot of the services that Central says they're providing to schools, they don't see those services in the schools. So they're not getting enough support, or at least not relevant support around teacher development and training. They still get extremely poor support around technology, around facilities, and principals are spending a lot of their time because that person is not someone that they hired and that they have control or oversight over. So I'd really like to see them have more of those kinds of services in their control, so that they don't spend half of their day on the phone to Central, we need a, the toilet's out or whatever. That person works for the principal as opposed to working for Central. So that's one example. And I'd like to really see schools, and maybe small schools can share, but I'd like to see schools have an operations manager that deals with that stuff so that principals can really just focus on mentoring teachers.
Okay, Renato?
So this issue is a huge issue. When the district was moving from the traditional large schools to some of the small schools in 2000, and I remember being in conversation with then Superintendent Dennis Chaconis and others when I worked with the organization to help think about what does it really mean to be able to provide greater, not just autonomy to our school site leaders, but authority. And I think one of the things that we sometimes forget is, well, we might allocate autonomy, but not enough authority, or even not authority, accountability. So how are we holding our leaders accountable? So we need to be able to have a conversation about what is in best service at the central office to the schools. And some of it is being able to make sure that at the school site that the principals and the leaders do have autonomy and accountability around hiring, around budget, around teaching and learning, around governance, around professional development. And to the extent that the district can support that, that the district should. I think the other thing we need to think about is to what extent is the school leader also understanding what the greater vision is. So how are other principals meeting with other principals to be able to make sure that they're sharing best practices there and not just having teachers share within? And so what is it that the central office can do to provide greater learning opportunities, professional learning communities for our principals? I think that'll help go a long way. And the other part of accountability is, I think then that means they do have to be better, their capacity needs to be built so they can actually take on this accountability.
One of the issues nationally is the discussion of Common Core. And I'm just wondering what you think of Common Core and how do you feel the Common Core could best be applied in Oakland? How can we best support that? And Shanti, let's start with you.
It's a pretty radical shift in what we're expecting of teachers and of students. What I think is exciting about it is trying to bring critical thinking back into education and trying to help students apply what they've learned to other fields, because that's what we want, right? We want to be able to take what each of us knows, the skills that each of us have, and be able to use them in all areas of our lives. So I think that's a really promising thing. This district, I don't feel, has a great track record of investing in teacher training and professional development. And so that's my main concern, is making sure that we're going to give teachers enough time to plan their lessons, because the lessons are going to have to change dramatically, making sure that they have enough access to experienced teachers and to good professional development. And then, one of the big criticisms of Common Core has been that it was created without a lot of input from teachers. And so a lot of it has been sort of crafted in the abstract without really testing it in classrooms. And so I think that's going to be a huge learning process for all school districts, not just Oakland. But Oakland in particular, I think we underinvest in teachers. And so that's my main concern, is making sure that teachers are going to have enough good training. And, we know that it's going to depress scores, and that's going to be demoralizing. Because these are stricter standards. And so we're just going to have to be aware that this is going to be a learning process and a learning curve, and not to get too discouraged. I think one of the big problems in the district is that we try things out and then we just kind of abandon them. We don't really take the time to analyze and learn from our experiences, and we need to do that. We need to really stay the course and see what we can learn.
Okay, Renato?
So I, for one, am pretty excited about the shift to this. And a lot of it is because I think oftentimes our kids, we're often told what we should read, what we should feel, what we should believe, how we should dress, what we should know. And so I think we've been should on a lot. And I know should happens. But I think in educational experience, we need to not only just know the answer, but know how we got to the answer. And I think what Common Core allows is an opportunity to be able to kind of not just understand how kids are representing themselves, representing what their answer is, but how they got there. And that moves us to a greater conversation then about what teaching and learning really is. And I think it allows us to be able to help teachers understand that just because we cover material and the kid doesn't learn it, we have to do something different, because if the kid isn't learning from the way we're teaching, we have to change the way we're teaching so that kids can learn differently, or more and better. And I think it comes down to trust in a lot of ways. And I think we need to be able to know that the teachers that we're hiring them because we do trust them with our kids. But we have to trust them by developing in their capacity. We need to be able to go back to the motivation issues, making sure that they understand what it means to master Common Core and the teaching and learning. And they also have to be really clear as to what are the range of autonomies or choices and options that they can actually apply. And then be able to, again, be held accountable to that jointly with not just the kids, but with the families and the schools.
Okay, I have one more question, and then we'll give you a chance to sort of sum up. And in Oakland, truancy has been a major problem. What things do you think that the school board can do and that the schools can do to address truancy? And Renato, let's start with you.
So I think, so my view of leadership isn't just that I know what my vision is and I come with an answer and I just push that down on the community. I think my view of leadership is that actually learning from a lot of my organizing colleagues is that we listen quite a bit. And we need to listen to our students about why they go to school and why they don't go to school. And then I think from there we can work then to identify, from listening, identifying what the themes are. Right? So being able to say, what are the themes, why are they doing this, what are they doing that? And then from that, then be able to come up with a strategy around addressing that, and then mobilize around that strategy. But let me also say that I'm saying this with the assumption and intention that it's with students and not for students. I think so many times we elect political leaders to say, you need to do things for us and for me, and I'm inviting your vote, or people's vote, so that you understand that means we're going to work together, because I think when I just do things for people, it's because I don't trust them. I want to do things with the people. We need to do things with young people. We need to be able to demonstrate a level of trust that really exists there. And I think trust is that indispensable precondition to revolutionary change. And I think we need to be able to keep developing trust with our kids and our students, so we understand why they are doing what they're doing and recognize that, again, it gets back to the curriculum. How are we making sure that it's rigorous, relevant, and relationship-oriented? They're not going to go someplace that doesn't feel relevant, that there aren't any relationships, and it doesn't really challenge who they are in a loving and caring way.
All right, so now I would like you to sum up.
Oh, do I get to answer the truancy
Oh,
question?
I'm sorry.
I think this is one of the big areas of opportunity to work more with the city. The district historically has not really collaboratively worked with the city on many issues, and I think this is one of the areas where I see real opportunity there. This is an issue that affects the whole city. We all know that truancy is related to crime in Oakland, and it's also related to a bunch of other stuff like teen pregnancy and other things that we care about. So I think this is something that we need to work on with the county and with the city and with any other relevant agencies like BART. And it's also an opportunity for revenue sharing, I believe, because the city has an interest in kids being in school instead of out committing whatever. So I want to see more collaboration there, and I think that's a real opportunity for us. And I also already mentioned one of the main things I think needs to happen is that we have to have a real strategy around this, and I don't think the district has one. And as I say, it should be part of a cooperation with the city and the county. And then somebody has to own this at the schools, and we don't have that right now. We don't have somebody at each school whose responsibility it is to be talking to families about the fact that their kids aren't attending school. It's a huge issue because Oakland loses millions of dollars when kids aren't in school. The city loses millions of dollars when kids are breaking into cars instead of being at school. And the police are frustrated because they don't have anywhere to take the kids, but they know that the kids are supposed to be in school. So I think this is something that we need to work on together, and is an opportunity to bring more revenue into the district if we could just, work collaboratively with the other agencies who have an interest in seeing this issue be resolved.
Good, thank you. So now I'll let you sum up. I'll take a deep breath. And Renato, let's start with you for the summation. Yes.
So we can do better for our kids. Again, my name is Renato Almanzor, and I'm running for school board in District 6, and I'm doing so because we can do better for our kids. And I believe that as a parent, as an educator, as a community leader, that I have the experience and list of accomplishments to kind of demonstrate that I can do just that. And I've done it over time. And not only that I have a number of folks who believe in me enough to be able to say, let's do this together. I've received endorsements from Gary Yee, the former superintendent, Jamoki Hinton Hodge, the school board member out of District 3, James Harris out of District 7. I mentioned those in particular because I think when we talk about the equity question, I think the areas that needed most greatest support in Oakland are Districts 3, 6, and 7. And so we need strong leadership and folks who are willing to work in partnership to be able to heighten and emphasize those areas that are in greater need. I also have received an endorsement from Desi Brooks, who's someone that I've partnered with as chair of the Oakland Fund, Planning and Oversight Commission for Oakland Fund for Children and Youth. I co-chaired it with another youth and helped lead the strategic planning process for the last 3 strategic plans of that fund. And from there, I learned deeply what it takes to really support our children and youth, to the point where I added, in our vision mission, I was the one who really proposed words like love and support and care and accountability in incorporating it into our vision.
I'm Shanti Gonzalez, running for school board in District 6. And what you're going to see when I'm on the board is you're going to see more investment in teachers, both in what we pay them, but also in their training, making sure that they're getting enough observation and feedback to improve their practice. You're going to see a focus on spending in classrooms rather than on central administration, and you're going to see organized parents putting pressure on the district to improve schools, and who know what the services are that they are eligible for, and who know that they have a right to be involved in their schools. One of our big problems in California, we're 49th in the country in per student spending, and organized parents is how we change that. We got to change Prop 13, and we can't do that without allied parents at our sides fighting with us. Oakland's got this really proud history of struggle for youth of color, and we can't stop now. We're in this together. I really fundamentally believe that we're all in this together in the city, and investing in our kids is the way that we are going to be able to renew this city that we're all so proud of. Amazing things are happening in Oakland, but education is the one thing that I think most people agree that if we could really focus on that and really have schools that we're all proud of, that's going to take us to the next level as a city. I've got some endorsements I'm proud of too. I've been endorsed by the teachers. I've been endorsed by Tom Torlakson, the superintendent of instruction in California, Delane Easton, who used to be superintendent of instruction, as well as the Building Trades Council, excuse me, all of the unions who work in the district pretty much have endorsed. And so I'm really proud of those endorsements, because thank you.
Well, thank you both very much, and good luck to you. And I'd like to thank everyone here for taking part in this evening, and to meet the candidates and ask questions and indicate interest that you have in the election process. For further information about forums and candidates, please visit the League's award-winning website, www.smartvoter.org. There you will find descriptive information and links to other sources. www.smartvoter.org is accessible from your home, your computer, or the public library. Members of the League of Women Voters do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues to keep our community strong. If you would like to be involved with us in making a difference to keep our community safe, vibrant, and strong, Join the League. You can visit our website, www.lwvoakland.org. I would also like to remind everybody that the deadline to register to vote is October 20th. So if you have moved, or you have changed your name, or wish to change your party affiliation since you last registered, you need to re-register by October 20th. You can do that online. It is now available at the Secretary of State's website, www.sos.ca.gov. And remember to vote by mail or to vote at the polls on Tuesday, November 4th. And encourage your family, your friends, and your neighbors to vote. So thank you very much, and good luck to the both of you.